Hey everyone, Dave here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the game Dominion. This happens to be the second edition and designed by Donald X. Vaccarino. And if you are not familiar with this game, then this video is for you. What I'm going to do is take you through the game, show you how the different cards work, what a deck building game is, and offer you some tips and strategies on how you can be effective and successful at this game. So let's get started. When you open up the box, inside there's going to be this insert that has a bunch of different card wells, and there's going to be bundles of cards wrapped in shrink wrap. You're going to have to unwrap them and you're going to have to separate them. There is this divider strip that comes with the game. You just put it in here and you put the cards in the appropriate slots. Now, some of the cards are going to have a blue background on them. There's going to be one from each of these different card types that are in here. And you're going to want to put all of them in this particular slot right here because you will use that for randomizing your game and which cards are going to come into play. Now, there is this mat in here that says trash. Do not throw this out. You are going to need this for some of your plays of the game. And then also, there is a rule book for the game. And the nice thing is on the back, a couple of pages, there are suggested setups for playing the game depending upon if you're playing the game by itself or using any of the expansions. And I'll talk about expansions in a little bit. These are the base cards that are going to be used in every game of Dominion. The first type of cards that we have are treasure. We have copper, silver, and gold. Those are going to be the currency that we're going to use to buy cards to build our deck. And as we get into this more, I'll explain to you about how the whole operation of deck building works. The other types of cards that we have are these victory cards. These are the points that we're going to need in order to win the game. We'll actually start off with a few of these, and I'll explain how those work. And then finally, the last type of card that's going to be used in every game are curses, and those are actually going to penalize you, and they are worth -1 victory point. Finally, the last type of cards that come in this game are what's called kingdom cards, and if you saw in the box, that's what most of these cards are that make up the game. And so each game you will put 10 types of cards in play, stacks of them, and you can go about them in one of 3 ways, actually. The first way is you can use a suggested setup that is in the book. And so the way that I have this set up right here is where it says first game. So these are the cards that are out here, and I will explain to you, we're going to talk about these all. The second way that you could do it is you can use these randomizers, and you just shuffle these up and you draw 10 of them, and those are the cards that are going to be used in play. Or the third thing that you can do is you can just pick any 10 that you want just by looking at them. And also, if you expand this game and you get more Dominion sets, you can pull cards from different sets to enhance your gameplay. When you have the game set up and ready to play, this is how I usually will set mine up, or in a similar configuration. Along the top, we have all of our base cards. Now, these victory cards here, the estate, the duchy, and the province, the number of cards that you put out in each of those stacks is going to vary by player count. So in a 2-player game, there will be 8 copies of each of those. In a 3-player game, there will be 10 copies of each. And in a 4-player game, there will be 12 copies of each. And then also for our curses, there is going to be 10 curses out with a 2-player game, 20 with a 3-player, and 30 with a 4-player game. That's those purple ones that are up there. The rest of these stacks have 10 cards each. Now, what's going to happen is each player is going to start off with a starting deck of cards. There are going to be 7 of these copper treasure cards, and there are going to be 3 of these estate victory cards. Now, let's take a look at these cards themselves. And the first thing that you will see is the title of the card, and then it will also tell you the card type that's down at the bottom. And then in the lower corner, there is going to be a cost as to how much this card would cost to buy it and put it into your deck. And so each of these other cards are also going to have their cost. Some of them can cost as little as 0, and some of them can have a cost up to 6 or even more. Okay, let's take a look at the cards that we have in play. And these are the first two. We've got the seller and the market. And the first thing down in the lower left corner is the price of the card and how much it's going to cost to purchase it. And then we'll also see the card type. These are both action cards. Most of the cards that will be, the kingdom cards that will be in play are action cards, but they will also vary from game to game depending upon which cards are in play. And then in the center is in the text box is going to be the action that the card will be able to perform. This one says +1 action, discard any number of cards, then draw that many. Okay, I need to stop right there and explain to you, what does +1 action mean? What does discard mean? And then also when we get to market, I'll have to explain what those other things mean as well. So what happens in the beginning of the game is that those starting 10 cards that you had dealt to you, you are going to shuffle them up and you're going to draw 5 cards to be as your starting hand. And when you are on your turn, you will be able to perform 1 action, basically play 1 action card, and you will be able to perform 1 buy action, which means you will be able to buy one of these cards and be able to add it to your deck. So over the course of the game, different cards are going to allow you to do more things on your turn. So +1 action will allow you to play an additional action card. And then when it says discard any number of cards, then draw that many, what you're going to do is any of the cards that you don't want in your hand, you will place them into your own discard pile, and you will draw that many cards from your draw pile in your deck to replenish your hand. And I will show that to you once we actually start getting into a game turn. But we need to go through the cards to be able to understand how we're going to go about playing the game. The second one, market. This is a very useful card. It's going to give you, when it says +1 card, that means that you're able to draw an additional card. So you'll have 5 cards at the start of your hand most of the time. This will allow you to draw another card into your hand. It also says +1 action, so it will allow you to play another action card. And as you keep playing these cards, they will continue to allow you to play more and more action cards on a turn, and I'll show you that. Also, it says +1 buy. That's going to allow you to buy an additional card on your turn, not just the initial one that you could buy. And then this last one where it says +1 and there's a coin there, that is actually +1 in terms of currency that you can use that turn to buy cards. The next 2 cards that we have the merchant and the militia. The merchant is going to allow you to draw an additional card and play an additional action card. And then it says the first time you play a silver this turn, +1 currency. Well, a silver card is one of the treasure cards. It's worth 2. So if you played a silver and then you get this, now all of a sudden you have like 3 in terms of money to be able to buy cards. The militia, when you see this over on this side, it says action, and then it also says attack. There are ways that you can interact with other players, and by attacking them, you're playing an attack card that will affect all of the players. So this one says +2 currency, basically, and then each other player discards down to 3 cards in hand. This is a crippling card because we normally only have 5 cards in our hand that we'll be able to use, and now you're cutting their hand size down to 3. It could be beneficial on some turns to the people that it happens to, but typically it's not a good thing. The next card we have is the mine, and it says you may trash a treasure from your hand, gain a treasure to your hand costing up to 3 more than it. So what you could do, this is a great way to start improving your deck in your hand, and that's what we're going to talk about as we're playing the game. But you could take a card like this, a treasure card, and the cost on this is 0. So if I were to trash this copper, what I would do is I would take this card out of my hand and I would place it on the trash pile, and then what I would end up doing is taking a treasure card that cost up to 3 more and put it into my hand. Well, if I look at the silver card, it costs 3. I could do the same thing. I could trash a silver and turn it into a gold because the cost for a gold is 6. So this is a perfect card to be able to use to be able to get rid of your basic cards and get better ones in there. And I'll talk to you more about that when we actually get into the gameplay itself. Okay, the next 2 cards we have are Moat and Remodel. Now, Moat is a blue card, and blue cards are going to have what's called Reaction. So when we have, the first part is when we play the card, we will be able to do whatever it says in the small text right here, plus 2 cards. This will allow us to draw 2 additional cards into our hand. The reaction text is underneath it. It says, when another player plays an attack card, you may first reveal this from your hand to be unaffected by it. So in this particular game, if somebody were to use a militia, that would cause us to have to discard cards from our hand. If we had this one in our hand, all we needed to do was simply reveal it, and we would not be affected by that particular attack card, and then that card would go back into our hand. And then Remodel, this is also, it says trash a card from your hand, gain a card costing up to 2 more than it. This is slightly different than the Mine because you can trash any card from our hand. It doesn't have to specifically be a treasure card. This can be useful in a lot of different ways to be able to change your deck around and be able to make you play more efficiently, and I will talk to you more about that shortly. Finally, the last 3 cards that we have in play, we have the Smithy, which will allow us to draw 3 cards. The Village is plus 1 card, plus 2 actions. And then the last one, the Workshop, says gain a card costing up to 4. So we would be able to gain, when it says gain a card, what we will do is we will be able to take a card and we'll place it into our discard pile. So now that we've gone through all the cards, now let me show you how to play the game and some strategies and how to go about playing the game effectively. Okay, we have the game all set up and we are ready to start. So I have this set up for 2 players. I'm going to show you a couple of hands how to go about playing this game. But what we will do is we will shuffle up our 10 starting cards and we will draw a hand of 5 cards. And the starting hand for this player, we have 1 of our victory cards and we have 4 of these treasure cards, the copper cards. These are going to tell you right now that this is going to give us, in terms of buying power, 1. So I have a total of 4. I'm going to go ahead and place these down right here so I can talk about these cards in the middle. And so the first thing that we need to do is realize that over the course of the game we're going to be working to take these 10 basic cards, we're going to expand this deck, make it better, to be able to afford to be able to purchase these victory point cards, because at the end of the game, whoever has the most victory points wins. And the game is going to end in one of 2 ways. Either we are going to go through and all of these province pile, this stack of province cards is going to be completely gone. There are 8 copies in a 2-player game. Or there are going to be 3 stacks of cards are going to be gone. And then when that happens, either way, which the game ends immediately, whoever has the most victory points is going to be the winner. So what we need to do is think about how we're going to be able to play this particular game. And we're going to have to add cards into this particular deck. Now, what I like to do usually is start by getting additional treasure cards so that I'm going to be able to buy some of the better cards. When you look at the different costs that are out here, typically the cards that cost more are going to be better cards. But we're also wanting to be able to do more things than just play 5 cards. So we have to look, do we want to have something that's going to allow us to draw more cards? Are we going to want to be able to play more actions on a turn? Are we going to be able to buy more than one thing on our turn? Those are the questions that we have to ask ourselves as we're playing the game. Typically what I do on my first turn is I will try to buy a silver if I can, and I will spend 3. So what happens is I will spend 3 from my hand, 1, 2, 3. These will go into my discard pile, which will go right next to my draw pile. And then what I will do is I will end up buying the silver card, and when I buy it, it will go into the discard pile, so it doesn't go into my hand. I'm only allowed to buy one particular thing on my turn at this point, so these other cards are going to be useless, and so I'm going to go ahead and discard them, and that would be the end of my turn, and then I would draw 5 cards to be ready for the start of my next turn. So we'll go ahead and go over here. On this particular player would draw their 5 cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this particular guy has drawn 5 copper, which is very useful because what you want to, if you can afford to do something right away, buy an expensive card, that would be a good option. So I think what I'm going to do is buy this mine. And this says that I may trash a treasure from my hand to gain a treasure to my hand, costing up to 3 more than it. This is going to be very, very, very useful. I'll be able to get more money faster than the other player will, because when this card comes around. And so this will go into my discard pile. And then I will draw back up to 5 cards. Now, typically, this will be back to the first player's turn. Now, typically, each of our turns is going to have there's going to be 3 phases. There's going to be an action phase, a buying phase, and then a cleanup phase. And I did a really quick, you got to see them all. But typically on a player's first 2 turns, they will not have an action phase because they do not have any action cards. So they will immediately go into a buy phase. And now if we look at these particular cards here, these victory cards, we can't really do anything with those. So we can only do a purchase. We have 3 in our hand. When we bought a silver the last time, that was quite useful. Now I think what I'm going to do is start wanting to give myself a little bit more flexibility in our turn. And so what I'm going to do is buy this merchant card. This merchant card is going to allow me to draw a card and also have an additional action. And the first time I play a silver on my turn, I will get +1. Well, I already added a silver to my deck, so this hopefully will pan out for me. So that card will go into my discard pile, and then, so that was my buying phase. I spent my 3 on that. And then my cleanup phase, these other 2 cards I can't do anything with, they're going to go into my discard pile. I don't have a draw pile anymore. So what's going to happen is I'm going to shuffle up all the cards that I played, including the ones that I just bought, and we're going to draw 5 new cards into our hands. So you can shuffle however you want. I usually just shuffle them, shuffle, and we'll draw 5 new cards, and we will see what we have in our hand. And so now you'll see that we got lucky, we have the merchant, and we also have the silver in our hand. So I want you to see the card combinations on that. Back to this player's turn here. They only have 2 copper on their turn, and so the only thing that they can do, we don't really want to waste a turn, is what I will do is I will buy a seller for 2. This will allow me to discard cards and draw things, and this will go into the discard pile. So that's the first turn of the game, and I want you to see a few things as they play out. So the way that this is going to work now is we can play our action phase. So what's going to happen is I'm going to play this particular action card first. The merchant, it says +1 card, +1 action. So the first thing is +1 card. I will draw a card into my hand. And then if I had any additional action cards in my hand, I'd be able to play another one. Then the text says the first time I play a silver this turn, +1 as terms of money. Well, I'm going to play a silver. So that's going to give me 2 + 1 is 3, 4, 5. In terms of buying. So when I go into my buying phase, I actually have 4 in my treasure cards plus the 1 that is granted to me by the merchant that I can go ahead and purchase cards here. Now, I have to decide, do I want to strike first and start going after victory cards, which is going to essentially clog up my deck because they don't do anything, but they are worth points, or do I want to purchase a card from the deck? And I think I'm going to go ahead and buy this mine this will allow me to start trashing treasure cards and be able to try to keep up with my opponent. So that is going to be his turn. All those cards go there, and we will draw another 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll be ready for our next turn, which we will just be able to buy things. This is going to continue over the course of the game, and I want you to see what's going to happen on the other opponent's turn, because I want you to see how the trash works and how it can be useful. So we have the mine, and we also have the cellar. So this is, so the first thing that we want to do is be able to maybe, I don't know if I necessarily want to discard any cards, but I will play this. +1 action, discard any number of cards, then draw that many. Well, right now I don't want to discard any cards because I want to be able to buy something, and so getting rid of these treasure cards at this point are not going to help me. However, I can play an additional action card, which I will play this mine, and it says you may trash a treasure from your hand, gain a treasure to your hand, costing up to 3 more than it. Well, I'm going to go ahead and trash this copper. That's going to go in the trash, and then gaining to my hand, I will gain this silver card. So now I went from having a 3 purchasing power up to 4. So this was, just by doing that, I'm a little bit richer. And so by playing 4, then I think what I would like to do is maybe I'll buy this smithy that will allow me to draw 3 additional cards, and then this will go into my discard pile. So what's going to happen is over the course of the game, we're going to continue playing this way. Some things that I wanted to share with you, trying to be efficient in the game. First of all, is if you have an opportunity to trash cards from your hand, you're going to want to get rid of cards like these coppers, because they're only going to give you 1 in terms of purchasing power, and if you can if you can get better ones, then it's going to allow you to buy better cards. Also, don't be afraid to trash victory cards, especially these lower point ones, these estates. They do have a cost of 2, and by using certain cards, they may be more beneficial for you to trash these to get an action card that's going to allow you to do better things. Also, trashing cards is going to allow you to what they call thin out your deck, and it's going to allow you to get rid of junky cards, cards that may not be useful for you. The last thing that I want to talk about is over the course of the game, you are going to want to be purchasing these victory point cards. Now, it comes at a cost, because you are buying these cards. They're going to give you victory points, but when you play them from your hand, they don't really do anything except give you victory points at the end of the game. You're going to have to figure out in the course of the game when you're going to stop buying these kingdom cards here and focus more on trying to buy the victory cards in order for you to win the game. That's just an overview of how you play Dominion, some of the tips that I like to play when I'm playing the game. As I would continue to play this out, I would try to pick up some moats. First of all, they allow you to draw 2 cards, and that's also a reaction to protect you from the militia. Now, the one thing that I didn't talk about in play in this particular game is the curses, and there are certain cards that will have you draw curses, and those will go into your deck, and they are worth -1 victory point. But a great way to get rid of those is to be able to trash them. You could actually take a curse if you were to have a card for the remodel. This is a perfect example of how a remodel can be useful. It says trash a card from your hand, gain a card costing up to 2 more than it. Well, the cost on a curse is 0, but if I were to trash that, I could actually get an estate that's a victory point that costs 2, so I can actually have a 2-point swing just by getting rid of trash cards and turning them into estate cards. So just a little extra tip for you going forward. Also, When I mentioned to you about playing with expansions, if you were to go to the store where they sell Dominion, there are several different boxes that are out there. The main one says Dominion on there, and then there's other ones that will have a banner underneath them. Let me show you one. For example, this is Intrigue. And so says, usually they will say on there, this is an expansion, not a complete game. So you will need to have one of two things. You either are going to have this regular, what they call a base game of Dominion, so that you have all of those cards at the top, or you can purchase a set of base cards that will give you all of these, what you need, and then you can go ahead and purchase an expansion and play with these cards. But there are lots of useful ones that are in here because you can mix and match different sets along the way. I just wanted to share that as well. Hopefully this has been a useful tutorial for you in understanding Dominion. I wish you luck in playing the game and wish you many, many victories. This is one of my favorite games. This is my favorite deck builder. And thank you for joining me for this series, and make sure to check out some of our videos. If you like this one, please click the like and the subscribe button to keep up with all of our work that we're putting out. Thank you guys, and we'll catch you soon. Bye-bye.